Sign the papers, Catherine. Now. My father's voice boomed across Grandma Rose's antique dining table, his fist clenching the transfer documents so tight they crumpled. I stared at him, then at my mother's expectant face, and finally at my sister Emma's smug expression. No, I said simply, my voice steady despite my racing heart. My name is Catherine Mitchell, and at 32, I was facing the most brutal family reunion of my life. Just 3 weeks after my beloved grandmother's funeral, my family had shown their true colors. "You ungrateful brat," my mother hissed, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the mahogany table my grandmother had cherished. "Your sister has 3 children. She needs this house. What do you need it for?" "Your books and cats." I glanced around the Victorian mansion that had been my sanctuary since childhood. Every corner held memories of afternoons spent with Grandma Rose, learning about herbs in her garden, listening to stories in her library, and baking in her kitchen. She'd lived here until her last day, with me visiting every weekend while the rest of the family barely showed up for holidays. "Emma hasn't visited Grandma in 2 years," I reminded them. "She didn't even come when Grandma was sick." "I was busy with the kids," Emma protested, but her eyes betrayed her. She wasn't interested in the house for its memories. She was interested in its value in this historic district. "The preliminary will reading is in 2 weeks," I said calmly. "We can discuss this then." My father stood up so abruptly his chair toppled backward. "There's nothing to discuss. Your mother and I have decided. Emma needs this house for her family. You're just being selfish." "Selfish?" I laughed, though there was no humor in it. "I'm the one who took care of Grandma. I'm the one who drove her to doctor's appointments, maintained this house, kept her garden alive. Where were all of you?" "That's what unmarried daughters are for," my mother said dismissively. "Now it's time to think about the future. Emma's children haven't set foot in this house since they were born." I cut in. "They don't even know their great-grandmother." "Because you monopolize her," Emma shrieked, her face reddening. "You always were her favorite, always here, always playing the perfect granddaughter." I stood up, gathering my composure. "I'm not signing anything. We'll wait for the official will reading." What happened next still feels surreal. My father stormed to the front door, pulled out a set of keys, and started changing the locks. Right there, in broad daylight, while neighbors could see. "Dad, what are you doing?" I asked, watching in disbelief. "Teaching the lesson about family loyalty," he growled. "If you won't sign willingly, we'll make sure you have no choice. This house belongs to Emma now. You can collect your things tomorrow," supervised. My mother nodded approvingly while Emma texted rapidly on her phone, probably already planning renovations. I felt a strange calm settle over me as I watched them, remembering Grandma Rose's words from our last conversation. "Kitty," she'd said, using her special nickname for me, "sometimes people show you exactly who they are. When they do, believe them." I picked up my purse and the small box of my grandmother's letters I'd been sorting through. "You know what? Keep the keys. But remember, Grandma Rose was smarter than all of you combined." "Is that a threat?" Emma sneered. "No," I replied, walking toward my car. "It's a promise." What they didn't know, what none of them had bothered to learn, was that Grandma Rose never did anything without a plan. As I drove away, I could see them in my rearview mirror, standing triumphantly on the porch of a house they thought they claimed. I smiled, thinking of the real will safely stored in her lawyer's office, and the secret she'd shared with me during those final precious days. Sometimes, karma doesn't need any help at all. Let them have their moment. In 2 weeks, they'd learn exactly what Grandma Rose thought about family loyalty. The next 2 weeks were a circus of family drama. Emma moved into Grandma's house immediately, posting constant social media updates about restoring our beloved family home. She'd already painted over the hand-stenciled flowers Grandma and I had spent a summer creating in the kitchen, replacing them with what she called modern farmhouse chic. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives, most taking my parents' side. "Think about your nieces and nephews," Aunt Paula wrote. "Don't be selfish." Uncle George called to remind me that family comes first. None of them mentioned how they'd barely visited Grandma Rose in her final years. I stayed quiet, living in my small apartment across town, reading through Grandma's letters each night. One particular note, written 6 months ago, kept me going. "My dearest Kitty. When the time comes, remember, patience is more than a virtue. It's a weapon. Some people are so busy grabbing what they want, They don't see what's right in front of them. You've always looked deeper, seen the real value in things. That's why you alone understand what this house truly means. Emma sent me photos of my things piled in boxes in the garage, including my grandmother's cookbook that had been promised to me since childhood. Better come get these before it rains, she texted with a laughing emoji. Oops, forecast shows storms tonight. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Mr. Harrison, Grandma's lawyer of 30 years. Everything's in order, he assured me. Rose was very specific about her wishes. Are you ready for tomorrow? More than ready, I replied, thinking of the garden shed key I still had, the one my family didn't know about, and the contents Grandma had shown me last spring. The morning of the official will reading arrived bright and clear. I walked into Mr. Harrison's office to find my family already there, dressed like they were attending a victory parade. Emma wore a new designer dress, while my parents sat smugly near the lawyer's desk. Now we can finish this nonsense, my father announced as I took a seat by the window. Catherine, after this is done, I expect you to apologize to your sister for all the drama you've caused. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. Before we begin, I should note that Rose Mitchell was very particular about her final wishes. She made changes to her will 6 months ago, and was, I assure you, of completely sound mind. My mother waved her hand dismissively. Yes, we know. The house goes to the family, which means... Please, Mr. Harrison interrupted firmly. Let me read the document as written. He opened the file and began. I, Rose Eleanor Mitchell, being of sound mind, declare this my last will and testament. The standard legal language continued until he reached the part about the house. My family leaned forward eagerly. Regarding my residence at 247 Maple Street, Mr. Harrison read, with its contents and surrounding property. Emma grabbed my mother's hand, grinning. I leave it in its entirety to my granddaughter, Catherine Ann Mitchell. The room exploded. Emma jumped up, screaming, This is a mistake. My father's face turned purple. Impossible. But Mr. Harrison wasn't finished. Furthermore, he continued over their protests. I have registered the property as a historical landmark, with the provision that it cannot be sold, subdivided, or significantly altered without approval from the Historical Society, of which Catherine is now a board member. I watched my sister's designer handbag slip from her fingers as the implications sank in. She couldn't tear down the house for condos as she planned. She couldn't even paint without approval. There must be some mistake, my mother insisted. Rose would never. There's more, Mr. Harrison said, holding up a hand. In the garden shed, there is a collection of historical documents and photographs pertaining to the Underground Railroad station that once operated from this property. Catherine has been assisting me in cataloging these materials for the past year. They, along with the house, are now part of our city's protected historical registry. The silence was deafening. My family stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. All those weekends I'd spent with Grandma, all those hours in the garden shed, they'd assumed we were just pottering around with her herbs and flowers. They'd never bothered to ask what we were really doing. You knew, Emma whispered. You knew all along. I met her eyes calmly. I knew Grandma. Really knew her. Not just what I wanted from her. This isn't over, my father threatened, standing up. We'll contest it. Mr. Harrison smiled politely. You're welcome to try. But Rose left extensive video documentation of her decisions, her reasoning, and Catherine's involvement in preserving the house's historical significance. Would you like to see them? The aftermath of the will reading was exactly what you'd expect from a family who just had their greedy plans derailed. My father stormed out, declaring he'd fight this all the way. Emma collapsed into dramatic tears, while my mother alternated between threats and attempts at manipulation. Think about what you're doing to this family, she pleaded, following me to my car. We can work something out. You can still live in the guest house while Emma takes the main house. I turned to face her, finally ready to say what I'd held back for years. Mom, do you remember what you said when Grandma broke her hip last year? That you were too busy to help because of your book club. I was there every day, helping her recover, while Emma didn't even send a card. That's different. She had the children. No, I cut her off. It's not different. It's exactly the same. You all saw Grandma and her house as assets to claim, not as something to cherish and protect. The Historical Society moved quickly to officially register the property. Within days, a plaque appeared near the front gate. describing the house's significance in the Underground Railroad. Local history buffs began requesting tours of the garden shed where Grandma had preserved documents and photographs for decades. Emma tried one last desperate move. She showed up at my apartment, her eyes red from crying. "My kids need a yard, Catherine. You're punishing them because you're angry with me." I invited her in, making us both tea, using Grandma's china cups I'd rescued from the garage before the rain. "Remember when we were little," I said, and Grandma would tell us stories about the families who passed through this house, seeking freedom. How they hide in the root cellar, and the gardens were planned to provide food and medicine. Emma shifted uncomfortably. Vaguely, I was usually busy with dance practice. That history, those stories, they're not just papers in a shed. They're a legacy. Grandma spent her life protecting it, documenting it. She chose me because I understood that. But my renovation plans would have destroyed historical evidence. The original floors you wanted to tear up? They have markings that helped guide people to safety. The garden you wanted to replace with a pool? It still grows herbs from seeds passed down through generations. Understanding finally dawned in her eyes. "You're not going to sell, are you?" "Not ever." "No," I said softly. "But your children are welcome to visit to learn the real family history, not just the version that benefits them." Over the next few months, I moved back into the house, carefully restoring what Emma had changed. Mr. Harrison helped me establish educational programs, working with local schools to share the house's history. To my surprise, my youngest niece became a regular visitor, fascinated by the stories I shared. My father still won't speak to me. My mother sends passive-aggressive messages about choosing history over family. But Grandma Rose was right. Patience reveals truth. Those who valued only what they could take from her house revealed themselves. Those who appreciated its true worth are now part of preserving its legacy. Last week, I found another letter from Grandma tucked inside an old book in her library. "Dearest Kitty, by now they've shown their hands, tried to claim what they think is valuable. But you, my dear one, always saw the real treasure, not in what could be sold, but in what must be preserved. This house isn't just wood and stone. It's stories, courage, and hope. You understood that from the first time I showed you the hidden passages and told you about the brave souls who passed through here. In protecting this house, you're protecting more than just our family's history. You're guarding a piece of our community's soul. Let them rage about market value and modern renovations. You know the true worth of things that can't be bought or sold. All my love, Grandma Rose." I sat in her garden, watching the sunset paint the old walls gold, surrounded by the herbs and flowers we tended together. The house creaked and settled, telling its ancient stories to anyone patient enough to listen. Emma's modern farmhouse dreams would have silenced these walls forever. Sometimes standing your ground isn't about winning or losing. It's about protecting what matters, even when others can't see its value. Grandma Rose taught me that, and in the end, she made sure the lesson wouldn't be forgotten. The house remains, its history intact, its stories preserved for future generations. And somewhere, I know Grandma Rose is smiling, knowing her real legacy is safe in the hands of someone who always understood that some inheritances aren't measured in dollars, but in the depths of understanding what truly matters.